Welcome to the Royal Dragon Court. Today I'm digging deep into the soil where the past becomes the present. Join me, Abbe de Vere, on a journey where I close the gap between being an armchair author and discovering real hidden history, where the earth remembers my first archaeological excavation at Paignton. History has always been my passion. For years I have spent countless hours researching manuscripts, genealogies, and historical records, tracing people, places, and forgotten stories through written evidence. Yet today I experienced history from an entirely different perspective. Instead of reading about the past, I stood on the very ground where it happened. I attended the Archaeological Open Day at Preston Down Road, Paignton, where archaeologists are excavating a remarkable site before a new housing development begins. Modern planning law now requires archaeological investigation where important remains may survive beneath proposed developments. Before builders can begin construction, archaeologists are given the opportunity to investigate, record, and preserve the evidence of the past before it is permanently covered. This process is known as development led archaeology, and it ensures that history is understood before modern development changes the landscape forever. As I arrived, I introduced myself to the site manager before joining the tour. Representatives involved with Devon's historic environment work had brought along a selection of finds from across the region, including material from the important Roman settlement at Ipplepen. On display were Roman coins, pottery from different periods, evidence of iron smelting, an Iron Age vessel, and replica tools that demonstrated how people may have lived thousands of years ago. Before we even reached the finds, however, I was immediately struck by the landscape itself. Today, the site is surrounded by modern housing and mature trees, but the archaeologists explained that during the Iron Age and Roman periods, the landscape would have looked completely different. The trees would not have obscured the view, allowing the settlement to overlook the surrounding countryside and out towards the sea. It soon became obvious why people had chosen this location. An elevated position gave its inhabitants excellent visibility across the landscape. Anyone approaching the settlement could have been seen long before they arrived, whether they were traders, travellers, or potential enemies. Good visibility was one of the greatest advantages an ancient community could possess. The archaeologists also explained that the settlement had been surrounded by substantial enclosure ditches. These ditches form part of its defensive system, creating an obstacle around the occupied area while also defining its boundaries and controlling access into the settlement. Combined with the natural advantages of the hilltop position, they helped protect the community that lived there. What is particularly fascinating is that those ditches do not simply stop at the edge of the excavation. Some continue beneath the neighbouring housing estate. The houses now standing beside the excavation were built during the 1970s, long before archaeology became such an integral part of the planning process. As a result, parts of the ancient settlement almost certainly survive beneath modern gardens and houses. It serves as a reminder that many archaeological sites disappeared beneath 20th century developments before their significance was recognised. That is precisely why excavations like this one are so important. Before another housing development takes place, archaeologists are being given the opportunity to investigate what survives beneath the soil, recording every feature before construction begins. As we walked between the trenches, one area immediately caught my attention. A university archaeology student was carefully sweeping the surface of one of the excavation areas. Within moments, he began pointing out fragments of pottery emerging from the soil. Then I noticed another small fragment lying just behind him. For me, that single moment summed up archaeology. Thousands of years after somebody last held that vessel, it emerged once again into the daylight. The fragment belonged to what archaeologists call Black-Burnished Ware 1, BB1, one of the most recognizable pottery industries in Roman Britain. Manufactured around Poole Harbour in Dorset, these dark, burnished cooking pots, jars, and bowls were distributed across much of Roman Britain between the 2nd and 4th centuries AD. Their distinctive fabrics, burnished decoration, and changing rim styles allow archaeologists to date many examples surprisingly accurately. Finding black burnished ware at Paignton tells us something important. Its inhabitants were connected to wider trading networks that linked South Devon with Dorset and ultimately with the wider Roman economy. The fragment may only be a broken piece of pottery today, but 2,000 years ago it formed part of somebody's everyday life. Somebody cooked with it, carried it, cleaned it, and used it until it eventually broke and disappeared beneath the ground. Nearby, another excavation area contained what the archaeologists identified as a kiln or oven like structure. Large deposits of charcoal had been found within it, suggesting prolonged exposure to heat. Whether used for pottery production, industrial activity, or food preparation, such features provide valuable evidence of how the settlement functioned on a daily basis. Other discoveries included fragments of glass bottles, reminding us that archaeological sites rarely belong to just one moment in time. Instead, they often contain layer upon layer of human activity spanning centuries. One of the most visually striking features was a substantial stone wall. Unlike ordinary masonry, the stones had been carefully arranged in a herringbone pattern, producing an attractive diagonal design. Reconstruction illustrations showed how the settlement developed over time, beginning as an Iron Age community before gradually evolving during the Roman occupation. That gradual development is one of the most important lessons archaeology teaches us. History rarely changes overnight, communities adapt, buildings are altered, old traditions continue while new ideas are introduced. The transition from Iron Age Britain into Roman Britain was not simply one civilization replacing another. Instead, the archaeological evidence often reveals continuity alongside change. This is exactly why the nearby excavations at Ibbelpen have become so significant. For many years, historians believed Roman influence in Devon had been relatively limited outside Exeter. The discoveries at Ippelpen have fundamentally challenged that assumption. Beginning in 2010, archaeologists from the University of Exeter, the British Museum, and Devon County Council uncovered a large Iron Age and Romano British settlement containing enclosure ditches, a Roman road, roundhouses, field systems, and evidence for occupation extending into the early medieval period. More than 150 Roman coins have now been recorded from Ippelpen, ranging from a Republican silver denarius struck in 49 BC to coins of the Emperor Arcadius, dating to the late 4th century AD. Such a remarkable sequence demonstrates centuries of occupation and shows that communities in Devon were participating in the wider Roman economy. The pottery recovered there tells an equally fascinating story. Alongside locally produced wares, archaeologists discovered imported Samian ware from Gaul and Amphorae that once carried products such as wine and olive oil from continental Europe. Some pieces even retain potter's stamps that allow archaeologists to identify the workshops where they were made nearly 2,000 years ago. These discoveries demonstrate that South Devon was connected to long distance trade networks reaching across the Roman Empire. Standing in Paignton, it became clear that this excavation forms part of that much larger picture. Every trench, every pottery fragment, and every wall helps archaeologists understand how communities across Devon changed from the Iron Age into Roman Britain. What I enjoyed most was not looking at objects in a display case, it was witnessing discovery itself, watching an archaeologist carefully sweep away soil before spotting a fragment that had remained hidden for centuries, gave me a completely different appreciation of archaeology. Research in libraries tells us what people wrote, genealogy tells us who people were, archaeology tells us how they lived. When all three disciplines are brought together, the past becomes something far richer than any one source could reveal on its own. You have been watching Abby de Vere. This is the Royal Dragon Court podcast. To find out more about real history and your own ancestry, visit my website and purchase my books, also available worldwide and in all good bookstores.